in our head when we wrote Harley together, we always pictured her as Bugs Bunny character. You know,
that makes so much sense now.
She could kind of walk into a situation, cause some chaos, and then leave the room. You know.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
That is
now.
a great, that's a great way to
as
put
a
it.
Bug Bunny lifer, makes so much sense.
Me too. Yeah, it's like just like throw the chaos grenade into the room and then just see what happens.
Yes, it's the scene with Bugs at the saloon, and he just shoots the gun and he just waits.
Coming to you from Crunchyroll HQ, this is The Anime Effect, where each week we bring you interviews with amazing people from across the world of anime, from directors to actors to artists and more, to discuss their anime favorites. It's pop culture with an anime lens.
Today we are sharing with you our conversation with comic book legends Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti. They shared their gateway anime, which includes Jimmy actually seeing Akira in theaters. Incredible.
Crazy.
And they share about redesigning Harley Quinn, how they found out Margot Robbie is a fan of their Harley Quinn series, and so much more. It's me, LeAlec Murray.
And I'm Leah President.
And together, we're here to see just how powerful the effect of anime
really is.
All right. Coming up, our interview with Amanda and Jimmy. Please stick around. It's a fun one. We are so happy to be here with the dynamic duo of Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti. Amanda and Jimmy are writers and illustrators for TV and for comics. That's why they're here. This is me coding. We've seen their work in Archie, for Marvel, Claypool, and DC Comics, and of course, the hit animated show Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And we said they're dynamic duo. It's because they're married. They're, the 1-2 like husband-wife punch.
I know. It's so classic. We love it. We love
it. Awesome.
But welcome to the show. Yay! Thank you for joining us on The Anime Effect. We are so happy to be talking to you today. And for sure. And so basically, every time we have a guest on this show, we kind of we have a question that we pretty much ask across the board, because the fans definitely want to know, what was your gateway anime? And also, or really.
Right. It's an and or. If you got both, we'll take both.
Yeah, we'll take both if you got it. But we also want to know, did you have a gateway comic? So what really kind of got you into the medium, the storytelling, all that jazz?
Let me go, Jimmy, because I have such a gateway anime show from when I was really little. I was addicted to Kimba the White Lion.
Oh.
I mean, addicted. I was all about it. I mean, like, when I say, like, I was a huge fan, I was like a ridiculous fan. I used to just like fantasize that I lived in that land, and, I had my animal friends all around me. And so much so that when I was in, like, I think first or second grade, there was one point where I guess we were doing math or something, and I'm like, lions don't do math. And I just dropped. Wait a second. I'm telling you, I dropped down on the floor and just started roaring at everybody. And I drove my poor teacher nuts.
Incredible. Incredible.
Dude, I would have wanted to be your friend. But that must have been hard, like, being a fan of Kimba, because there probably wasn't a lot of, like, merch or anything that you could, like, express your fandom with back then, because like anime and manga exposure was so limited.
It was. It was a long time ago. And the only way I could express myself was drawing pictures of, Kimba, Daniel, Baboon, Kitty, like all of the characters.
That's so cool.
That's just how I was able to do it. And that might be why I draw today, is because I was always drawing Kimba when I was a kid.
This is the second time that Kimba the White Lion has been in a conversation.
What was the first time?
So I did New York Comic Con, right?
Yeah.
And I had dinner with some partners from Kanakawa, and one of the directors was like, yeah, Kimba the White Lion. Like, I was like all about that one. It was one of my favorite ones growing up. I'm like, what? So this
is a deep cut. It is a deep cut.
It's awesome.
Like
Well, I'll say mine came probably a little later than Amanda, and I didn't realize when I was a kid. Like I used to watch Kimba and a lot of other shows. I didn't know what the influence was. It was just a cartoon that was on TV for me. But I do remember going to see Akira in the movie theaters when it was first.
In the movie theater, that's so awesome.
Yeah, because I lived in New York, and they had like a special screening of it in the city, and all the comic book fans were like, "Oh, we got to check this out. This looks like something different." Yeah, and and then that movie exploded our brains. Like we were like, "Oh, okay." We didn't know animation could be like this, so adult, so deep and level. There's so many things to it besides beautiful animation. And Otomo's amazing, the work he did on it. And then I started picking up the American adaptations of the Akira graphic novels.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I had the Japanese ones first. I couldn't read any Japanese, but I had all those thick volumes of Akira. And I would just look at the pictures, I would just admire it for that. And then eventually that got adapted into English. I think Marvel Comics, actually, the Epic line did an adaptation of the books in English. And it was the first time they had that ever happen. The manga was done that way in comics. And everybody was picking it up. And I remember going to like specialty comic shops in Manhattan where they would have like the manga books, but they would be these like 600-page books with like 30 different strips in it. And I would just buy them because I liked the artwork. Like I didn't know what was going on in them. They were all in Japanese. Not an easy language to kind of grasp, especially as a kid. It just looked like, another art form to me. But I fell in love with the storytelling, the really decompressed storytelling that was very unlike American comics, which pretty much is very, do a story in 22 pages, beginning, middle, and end. That's what I grew up with. And with these books, we're talking about hundreds to thousands of pages.
Yeah, just long form storytelling.
Just a part of a story, So it was a completely different experience, which led to me, of course, pursuing other type of work that was eventually adapted. And again, the world caught up, and all of a sudden, now it's everywhere. But I mean, there was a point I felt with Akira where it just was the introduction to me of another art form that I had no idea existed. And it was a pretty exciting time.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine. That's so awesome.
Incredible. So we have to ask, because I'm sure everybody's probably talked to you guys about this.
Yeah, we have to talk about this.
But 2013, you guys were approached to do the relaunch for Harley Quinn for DC. And arguably, this has kind of become the most recent, most definitive version of
very
the character.
Iconic.
What was that process like for you guys? And what was the inspiration behind her redesign as a character?
Well, that was me at the time when we got a hold of Harley. She had been a Suicide Squad character, in the Suicide Squad comic.
Right.
And she had her blue and red outfit instead of the black and red outfit. And they wanted me to do that outfit. They didn't want to, go backwards. They wanted her to have this new outfit. And I was like, I don't want to do that outfit. It had neck ruffles on it. And I've said this 100 times at conventions and stuff. I hate neck ruffles. I don't like them.
You'll have to draw it 100 times.
Right. And I didn't want to do that. Right. So I call them the mullet of the 16th century. I just I look at the paintings, the classic old paintings, Queen Elizabeth I and, Sir Walter Raleigh. And I'm like, get that stupid stuff off your neck.
Yeah.
It's
and it cannot be comfortable either. Yeah.
There's actually a whole nother story. There's a reason for the neck ruffles that somebody enlightened me about. Basically, the neck ruffles were made to hide marks on your skin from syphilis.
Dude, it's always some dark-sided reason. There's always some dark-sided reason, the Habsburg jaw and all this, everything in old paintings has some kind of weird dark-sided
and you're
meaning.
like, oh, look at these pretty little decorations, and it's hiding, lesions on your neck.
Right. Yeah. Like the white makeup that was like poisoning everybody. Like,
so yeah, I didn't want to draw neck ruffles, over and over and over again. So I just sort of like, they were like, don't change the costume. I'm like, okay. And then I went and I changed the costume, and it ended up, and it was sort of like, maybe it was subconscious, but it sort of started looking like a roller derby outfit. And I'm like, oh, we should put, Harley in the roller derby, that's like perfect for her. So
that's so cool.
So we went to see some roller derby matches and had fun with that. We're like, she's gonna be in roller derby. So that's how her newer costume, her 2013 costume came about.
Yeah, and when they approached us with Harley, we basically only knew Harley from the animated series, the Batman animated series that was on years before. And we started investigating a couple of different runs Harley had. At the time, Harley Quinn was canceled. The numbers weren't, the character wasn't selling that much. And actually, I co-wrote the Injustice video game. And we put Harley in the game. Yeah. And that was a very popular thing to do. So when they offered us the book, they said, look, it's probably not going to last more than 6 or 8 issues because Harley just doesn't sell. And so we came back and said, listen, we want to develop the character, but we don't want to do a Batman family character. Like the more we keep Harley in Gotham, it's just going to be a Batman spin-off character. Mm-hmm. So we decided to take Harley back to her roots, and that's from Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, who created Harley, told us that she was from Brooklyn. And we said, all right, let's put her in Coney Island. She'll fit right into Coney Island. Then we told DC, we don't really want to write a book about a woman in an abusive relationship. So we're going to have her leave the Joker and head to Brooklyn and create her own supporting characters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was just an instinctual thing Amanda and I did. We didn't want to write about that relationship because it was basically him abusing her all the time.
Yeah.
So we said, in order for us to build up this character with people, we have to create her supporting characters. And we have to create her world and who she is. And, we never expected that these couple of little changes would blow up the way they did. It definitely was something like we sat there and we started seeing, all of a sudden Amanda's drawings are on everything, T-shirts, toys, games, jewelry. And I think it was the Halloween, maybe in 2015, when it was the #1 Halloween costume in the United States. We were like, okay, something's going on here. And then they announced Margot Robbie and Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And it went crazy from there.
I love that you guys went in with the separation of not only the Bat family. I mean, as a Batman lover, like, you don't want to always see his immediate circle be with him, and separating Harley, I think, was awesome. But then also separating her from the Joker, because that's, for whatever reason, a lot of her identity is tied to the Joker and the abuse in the relationship. Yeah. So separating her from that, kudos for one. Thank you.
And it revolutionized the character. Like you said, there's kind of like a direct line from when you sort of revised it to how big of a character she is now. I mean, now we have the Suicide Squad anime like featuring Harley Quinn and like
which is great. This is great. It's so great.
So it's just cool, to hear you talk about like the evolution and how you can kind of draw a direct line of that. That's awesome. So we talked a little bit about sort of the origin of this new version of Harley Quinn. How did you get involved in the animated series? Was it directly due to your work on the comics and it was just kind of like the next natural step?
I mean,
Amanda, you want me to answer this and then pass it to you? Because I think it'll be funnier.
Okay.
Oh boy.
So they, of course, Warner Brothers tells us, hey, we're doing an animated show, based on your comic book, blah, blah, blah. And we approached Diane Nelson, who was running Warner Brothers at the time, and said, okay, but what can we do? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And everybody was looking at each other like, well, we're just doing it. And I'm like, well, how can we be involved? I mean, we did write over 100 of these books. We can, and I also write animation. How can we help? Can we be part of the team? So we kind of had to go up the ladder just to get involved, because they were just like, yeah, we'll take everything you guys did and we'll make a cartoon. And I was like, yeah, but we should be involved at this point,
right?
Because we've while we would, and by the way, while we did the character at DC Comics, one of the rules we had was you couldn't put Harley Quinn in other books other than Suicide Squad unless we were doing it, because we felt we needed to control her story.
Yeah,
and,
smart.
Which was very important to why after years and years people were still buying the book like it was it was a big hit. So
it's like your baby at that point.
Yeah, and you know, as things do get watered down, when they get too popular, the first instinct for a corporation is to go out and do a billion things about it.
Amen.
Keep doing
Amen.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
And what happens with that, it waters down it, and then everybody walks in with their own version of it, and eventually nobody cares anymore. That's it.
Right.
We see it happen with Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. It's just so many things going on. So Diane Nelson listened to us, and then here you go, Amanda, the handoff.
So I got a call from the Harley the animation guys over at Warner Brothers, and they asked me to do some scenes and some character turnarounds just so
that's cool.
They could get an idea of like how to simplify it enough for animation, but keep it sort of rooted in its comic book origin. So I did a bunch of those for them. Yeah,
I mean, our involvement is not huge after that. I mean, we watch it, when it's on, and we have plenty of comments about it. Yeah, it's fun.
It's definitely fun.
I mean, it went back right to before what we did, which was Harley in Gotham and sticking every supervillain in the cartoon. And we went right back to that, and understandably, of course, because you want to sell it to a bigger audience. But the cartoon's a blast. I mean, it's crazy and it's fun and it's unhinged. And it definitely, between that and the films, because the films definitely used a lot of stuff that we did in the comics, the Birds of Prey and this second Suicide Squad movie as well used a lot of the stuff we did. Margot's a big comic book reader. She read every issue we did.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, did you have a chance to chat with her before she portrayed the character?
After she asked us if she did a good job.
Wow.
But we met her 2 or 3 times, and we were on set for Birds of Prey, and she's terrific. Awesome. I mean, she's a powerhouse person. Like, you meet her and this person knows what they're doing, and she's generous.
She's genuine.
Yeah.
She's very genuine, and because I've heard, I read, this is all hearing secondhand, but people who have portrayed comic book characters, and an interviewer will ask them, "So do you read comics?" And they're like, "Oh God, no!" It's like, and I'm like, "What's that?" It's like, this character is making you a lot of money. Why are you But somebody snapped a picture of Margot Robbie at the airport standing in line. Yeah, I guess in the security line. And she is just, she's tucking into a Harley Quinn graphic novel. And I'm like, you go.
That's awesome.
I'm very, proud of that.
You guys made an authentic fan of her.
Yeah, I hope
That's
so.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and I like that she's, she likes the source material, she likes the comics, and she likes the character. So I have a lot of respect for that.
In our head, when we wrote Harley together, we always pictured her as Bugs Bunny character.
That makes so much sense now.
She would kind of walk into a situation, cause some chaos, and then leave the room.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
That is
now.
That's a great way to
as a Bug Bunny lifer, makes so much sense.
Me too. Yeah, it's just throw the chaos grenade into the room and then just see what happens.
Yes, it's the scene with Bugs at the saloon, and he just shoots the gun and he just waits. So you guys have done a lot of projects together. What is it like working together?
As a couple?
As a couple. I mean, I'm
how
sure
do you separate that work-life balance, I guess?
Is there a separation? What's the challenge?
I'm sure you guys have it as a well-oiled machine at this point. But.
We separate it by floors. He's on the first floor and I'm on the second floor, and we give each other space. And then at around lunchtime, he'll poke his head in the door and do this. Because he's starving. Amanda's a visual person. Obviously, she's the artist, and I'm a writer. So
if we were in the same office, it would be terrible because I listen to classical music and she watches Judge Judy while she's working.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic.
So these worlds colliding would not be great beneficial. We do tend to go out and do things, and then stories come up. We'll be doing some ridiculous thing or going out to a party or something, and we'll talk about stuff. It was really funny. That guy told me a story, and then they said, it reminds me of a good idea, and then I, write it down as an email and send it to myself so I can read it, after the hangover the next day. And so there was a lot of our ideas came from just friends and stories, and being a good creator is knowing also when to listen to people telling you. And we travel a lot, and Amanda and I are the crazy exploring travel people where we just go to a town. And then we start exploring it, and then we figure out, we need to get a hotel room somewhere. And we're very spontaneous, and she is a spontaneous character. So so Harley kind of fell into the right people at the right time, I think.
That's awesome.
That's really
awesome.
Cool. So I've got a question for you, Amanda. So your art style, I said it earlier, very iconic, very recognizable. When did you know that you wanted to draw specifically for comics? And I also want to know, what were some of your influences as you were kind of moving into the medium and also starting out?
I have so many influences. I would say, I started drawing when I was like 3 years old because there were art supplies all over the house. My mom and my dad are both artists.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that's really helpful when you're a budding young artist to just have access to all the supplies and have access to just like standing over their desk while they're drawing and just watching them. That's also an education.
Was there a character design or a comic or something that you would say counts as like your breakthrough defining moment?
Oh, wow. I went, a lot of years, doing licensed characters and then doing very serious, grim characters. And then after a while, I was just like, I really like doing silly stuff. Like the more ridiculous, the better. So I always lean towards that now. I just, I'm like, that's where I'm comfortable. Ridiculous.
Well, you get to draw like clown makeup for a living.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
True. so I mean, and you were talking about influences. One of my, aside from my parents, one of my first very original influences was Chuck Jones, being a Bugs Bunny and a Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner fan. I just love, his facial expressions, his timing, the way the characters look at, they have that deadpan look on their faces when they, look at you in the camera.
Chuck Jones is the man.
He's
my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, he's my favorite, along with Wendy Pini and Frank Miller and, the anime stuff that I used to watch when I was a kid, like Kimba. Yeah. Some of my favorite manga, My the Psychic Girl and Lum, were like two of my so there's
Coming
that influence.
In with the deep cut.
Right.
This is what we live for.
And I know we have to let you guys go because you're very busy.
But we do have a final question.
But we do have one more question for you.
Before we have you plug all the things.
Before you plug all the things. Do you guys have a favorite character that you've worked with? And is there a character you'd like to work with in the future?
I know my favorite character that I've worked with. And people are going to be shocked because I think most people think it's Harley Quinn. And Harley Quinn is one of my absolute favorite characters to work with. But it's Power Girl. I love Power Girl so much.
I was not expecting that answer.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, love Power Girl.
And that's why we keep like jamming her into Harley Quinn comic books because, we love working. Jimmy and I both love working on Power Girl. And I call Power Girl and Harley Quinn the world's finest team up you never knew you needed. So
that's awesome.
What is it about Power Girl? Is it like the design? Is it just her character?
I think I felt like we really got to develop her personality. And I think that's what I love about her is that she's in the Superman family, but she's sort of an outsider of the Superman family. So she just has this sort of like, tiredness about her. She's just sort of like, like always exhausted, but still keeps going.
She's always felt like the outcast. Like you said, she's always been on the outlier, and that I think has always been the great part about her character is that she was never in the core family. Like, she would be there if they needed something, but she's like, bro, I'm tired. Like, I'm
trying to find out who I am. Okay,
right? And it's like she's so much more than just boobs, Yeah. So, and that's another reason she's exhausted.
Beyond the spandex.
right.
Yeah.
But what about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, she's also a favorite character of mine because I spent my whole career writing female characters. And when we got Power Girl, the first thing I asked DC Comics, like, where does she live? And they're like, what? And I'm like, where does she live? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, does she have a job? And nobody can answer any questions.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun book to write because we're going to define who she is, where she lives.
It's a blank slate.
What makes her tick? Yeah, what makes her tick? Beyond physically how she looks, because that's what basically the people that not involved look at Power Girl and go, oh, she's this and she's that. But for me, it's it was the same job with Harley Quinn. It was the same job with one of my favorite characters, Painkiller Jane, that I co-created. It's just like, who is this person? What do they want? What do they fear? And if I can't answer these things, I'm not doing a good job as far as a writer. And so to write superficial stuff, nobody's going to care about the book. So the challenge for these kind of characters has always been, for me, is who are these people? Why should we care? And why should I want to read 150 issues of this character? And I grew up around strong women, and it's so easy to write these characters because they're smarter than the male characters. They look at things differently. They pause before they open their mouth and say something. Right. And so I love writing those characters. I also love writing Jonah Hex for DC Comics because it's a Western. As far as things I haven't done yet, I've pretty much written every character that Marvel and DC has at one point. Well, Superman, the Batman, the X-Men, Wolverine, all of them.
I'm a huge Luke Fox fan, so thank you for that.
And again, they gave us Batwing, and they said, we don't want it to be this guy. We need it to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And I said, well, can we take a Lucius Fox from the movie and give him a son? And they said, well, what is he going to do? Is he going to be a billionaire? And I'm like, no, he's an MMA fighter. That's brilliant. Like, he's smart. Yeah. He chooses to fight, Yeah. And it was so much fun writing those Batwing issues because, I loved it. It was something that clicked, and I wrote it from a New Yorker point of view. It's when you grow up in a big city like that, it's kind of like you get a different view of the world, I think.
Yeah. That also makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to have you back because
great.
I feel like there's so many stories.
There are so many stories that we didn't even crack into all of our questions that we had planned.
Right.
Like, we definitely want to hear from you guys again.
We'll come back.
It was incredible.
For sure. Oh, friends of the show. Let's go.
Thank you guys so much. This was so fun.
Thank you
it was
so
our pleasure.
much.
Is there anything that you guys would like to plug?
Yeah, what can we see coming up from you?
I have a book I'm writing for Todd McFarlane called The Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger. And that's an ongoing monthly series it's basically Todd's Gunslinger is a big character for Todd McFarlane in the Spawn universe. It's basically me writing the Gunslinger, not in present day, which is Todd's book. I'm writing it right after the Civil War. The stories when he was in the Old West. So it's a monthly book drawn by Patrick Reynolds, and that starts November 27th. So that's an ongoing series. So that's a monthly book that's, as Todd told me, you better be ready to write it for a long, long time.
We'll definitely be looking out for that.
We're locked in.
I'm just, I'm working on Kickstarters with Jimmy. I'm doing covers for him. I'm doing covers for Marvel and DC. And we do have a project coming up that I'm not allowed to talk about. But it does involve two ladies that we all love.
Oh, I'm going to be guessing
and it's for two different companies.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay,
we can't know off camera, can we?
Leave that there. Let's leave that.
Get the NDA signed. I'm curious. Right. But thank you so much for joining us this week. Like I said, I have so many more things I want to talk about, so we definitely have to have you guys back on.
Right. For sure.
We would love it.
That was great.
Yeah, I didn't expect to talk about Kimba the Lion.
No, not at all. I'm actually like I'm always as a diehard comic book guy. It always is very intriguing to me how certain artists or certain creators will get their hands on a character and they're so pivotal in like reimagining or redesigning that just becomes the standard. So like for everybody that knows Harley now, that is their version of Harley. For me, when I got introduced to Harley, it was Batman the Animated Series. Now that's totally changed for people. So I think that's great, especially because, you know, they've contributed to some other really cool redesigns for DC characters.
They're a piece of history in the whole comic world.
Can't take it away from them. They got show credits and everything.
Can't take it away. Thank you for joining us on yet another episode of The Anime Effect, brought to you by Crunchyroll and Sony Music Entertainment. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
The Anime Effect is hosted by me, LeAlec Murray, Leah President, and an absent Nicholas Friedman. We are executive produced by Jonathan Hirsch, Joanna Clay, and Nicholas Friedman. Our lead producer is Kyla Carnero. Our associate producer is Zoe Culkin. Open-Ended Films and Vince Garza filmed, and Pixelworks edited the video. Our head of production is Sandy Allison. Special thanks to Carla Solorzano and Tamika Balance-Kolasny.
We will be back next week with even more anime, of course.
Listen, we're going to keep saying it. There's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you can do about it.
Thank you for hanging out. Later days, y'all.
See ya.